Our next presentation, or pitch, comes from Real Voices. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Becky Chalmers, and I'm the founder and director of Real Voices. We are a thriving community of choirs for adults in South London. It's fantastic to be back here at Guildhall today. I studied a classical flute degree here, graduating in 2012. And what I didn't know at the time was that the next 2 years of my life were going to utterly transform my future career. From the Guildhall practice room, my career took me to the Caribbean island of Montserrat on a program initiated by Sir George Martin, the late Sir George Martin. And my job description was to inspire the youth of the island to make music. And I spent 2 years building sustainable music programs in the schools and the community. And through that work, I witnessed firsthand the undeniable power that music has to unite and empower people. And I was completely hooked with that. Once you feel that, you can't unfeel that. And I came back to London and I was at a complete loss. I craved that feeling of knowing I had created powerful musical experiences that were having such a positive impact on people's lives. I also really missed the sense of community I had grown accustomed to living on a small island of 5,000 people. And so, for those reasons, I started Real Voices. And those two things, powerful musical experiences and a sense of community, are at the heart of everything we do. So what do we do? Quite simply, we run weekly evening choirs for adults in South London. We're currently reaching 200 adults on a weekly basis. We have 4 choirs, all of which are at full capacity with a waiting list. I am the musical director of 3 of those choirs, and we're in a really exciting phase of development because I've just brought on another musical director to lead the 4th choir. And the success of Paul's choir, which is also at full capacity after just 8 weeks, proves that we're onto something and that Real Voices is bigger than me. I was wondering if anybody would like to hazard a guess as to how many choirs there are in the UK. 1,000. Thousands. How many?
50,000.
Oh, okay, so well done. There are over 40,000 choirs in the UK. Okay? That enables 2.14 million people to sing on a regular basis. Okay? To put that in context, that's more people than are playing amateur football as a hobby. So I can't stand here and say that running a choir is a unique thing to do, because I've just told you there are 40,000 of them. What is unique, though, is the way that we run our choirs. At Real Voices, we believe that you don't have to have musical experience in order to be musical. So our choirs are open to absolutely everybody, regardless of musical experience. And that means we get the most incredible range of people in our choirs. We have professional instrumentalists that want to sing as a hobby. We have one of our tenors used to be on the UK tour of Rent the musical, and they're sat next to people who have literally never sung in a choir before. My favorite example is a guy called Richard who came to the rehearsal and I promise this isn't an example of my bad marketing. He came to open rehearsal thinking that it was a concert. And I was like, well, you may as well stay for the rehearsal. And he stayed for 18 months. So because we let everybody in doesn't mean that our standards have to be low, and that's what's really special about us. We strive to challenge expectations of what a non-auditioned choir can achieve. And we do this not by auditions, but through creating the right sort of playful atmosphere where our members feel challenged, yet supported, relaxed, yet completely focused, because it matters what we do. We sing my own unique arrangements of popular music, and it's suggested by our singers, and they range in age from 20s to 70s, so we sing quite a vast range of music. And we perform with a professional band, always, a live band, which creates an extra element of excitement in the performances. And if we've got a bit of spare cash, we even throw in a string quartet sometimes, because who doesn't love a string quartet? We also collaborate with up-and-coming singer-songwriters, which gives the singer-songwriter a fantastic experience to sing their music with a live choir behind. And it gives our singers an alternative insight into how arrangements can be made from nothing. And lastly, we perform at brilliant venues. And as you can see, we're equally at home in one of London's best pub venues, the Bedford and Balham, as we are in one of its stunning churches. So those are a lot of musical reasons that really help us stand out from our competition. And one non-musical reason, and it's arguably the most important thing that makes us stand out in London, is that we limit the number of the number of singers in each choir to 50. And when I talk about finances in a minute, you might wonder why we do that, because we could make more money if we let more people in the choirs. But I said earlier that belonging to a community is at the heart of what we do. And whilst we all know that London's an incredible city, it's also very easy to feel isolated living in London. The UK is the loneliest country in Europe, London even more so. We even have now this year a minister for loneliness because it is such a growing problem, equivalent to smoking 14 cigarettes a day, I was reading. So in keeping our choirs small, which a lot of our competitors don't do, they just throw hundreds and hundreds of people on the stage at the same time, we are creating communities to belong to. Belonging is a human need. We have a need to belong. And these communities extend far beyond singing together once a week, and they're really much needed in London. I'll give you one example. Sadly, one of our altos last year, who's only 25, she lost her mother to a terrible form of cancer. And she said that having the choir to come to on a weekly basis was literally the only thing that got her through that. And her mum was too ill to come and watch any of the performances. So on her mother's funeral, half the choir took a day off work to travel to Hertfordshire to sing at her mother's funeral, to stand behind her so she could sing for her mum. And I've got millions of examples like that, and if I didn't have a 10-minute limit, I'd go into that a little bit more. Here are a few of our singers to tell you what they think.
Work and mental health, so I know what a difference it makes.
I found that the creative outlet has helped me feel less isolated and made me feel really good about myself.
So approachable and works for whatever your musical background.
She'll make you included and make you feel like you're a superstar, and that's why I really, really, really love it.
So on the one hand, there's this playfulness, and there's an element of seriousness, because it matters what we do.
I found myself being far more confident in business meetings just because she helps you find your voice.
The first one was Val that you cut off. She said, I need it for my mental health, and I work in mental health, so I know what I'm talking about. She's the CEO of Mind Charity in Richmond. Finances. How does it all work financially? So we have a self-sustaining business model that is funded by our singers who pay to be a member of one of our choirs, just like you'd pay to go to a yoga class or a Pilates class. We follow the academic year. We've got 3 terms per year, 13 rehearsals per term, and singers commit for a term financially, although they end up staying for a lot longer than 1 term, mostly. So our turnover for year 1 was 35,000, with a profit before tax of 25,000. Our turnover for year 2, which finishes in August this year, is looking to be 68,000, with a profit before tax of 35,000. And this year's figures are after a basic salary for myself, whereas the first year didn't take that into account. And you can see that we're predicting higher figures for next year, which takes me nicely onto what our plans for the future are. So, as I mentioned, we've got 4 choirs currently. They're all at full capacity with a waiting list. Okay, I've turned 30 people away in June alone who want to join, which just seems really silly. So, to keep up with that demand, because there's a clear want and need for what we're offering, we aim to launch 1 new choir per term for the next 6 terms, which would take our total number of choirs to 10 by the end of our 4th year. And I'm confident that we can achieve this goal for a number of reasons. We have previous successful marketing campaigns. We've had a very limited budget. We had a maximum of £200. And to give you an example, last year when we started the Brixton Choir, I put £125 on a Facebook advert. The lifetime return on that investment so far is £14,000 because the singers stay for such a long time because we're giving them such a personal experience. Okay, so I'm confident. We've had a huge number of applicants from really brilliant musical directors who want to work with us, and that's obviously going to be really important going forward because there's only so many places that me and Paul can be. We've identified future locations that match our criteria for what we think are good areas for setting up a choir. And finally, more time. I've done everything I've done so far, I've done as part of a portfolio career as a musician. So Real Voices has just been a part-time venture for me. But I've now, as of next month, I've restructured everything so I can devote 90% of my time to Real Voices and hopefully 100% of my time at the end of next year. So that brings me on to what we need, why we're here today. I have realized that I can't do everything myself. And I want to create a sustainable business for these people that benefit so much from it, so that if something were to happen to me, it can carry on. And it just wouldn't at the moment. It would be a nice project that we did for a couple of years that didn't. So what we really need, and it's not an emotional need for the money, it's very practical. I need somebody on board to help me with the admin, because there's an insane amount of admin, and I am beginning to become a bit consumed by the day-to-day running of the business. And what I need is somebody to support me on that, to free me up so that I can do the important future vision, getting us to the next where we want to be, training musical directors, doing all the stuff for the future that, you know, I'm going to struggle to have time to do on my own. £4,000 would allow me to pay for 222 hours of administrative support with a virtual assistant that's been recommended to me. And that would really be transformational for us in the next year. And that would allow us to reach 150 new people, start 3 new choirs, bring in an extra revenue of £31,000. And at that point, we would then have enough profit to pay for that administrator going forward. So it's not just a one-time fix. It would be helping us to get to that next stage. So to conclude, I just want to say that 2 years ago, I started a business which was essentially an extension of myself and my values as a person and a musician. And by the next 2 years, by the end of the next 2 years, I wanted to have created a business that works beyond me, not because of me. And that's not because I don't want to be in it. I'm always going to want to be in it because I love it. But it's just bigger than me now. And thank you so much for listening. I look forward to your questions.
Can I ask? It's extremely impressive what you say. Something that's going around in my mind.
Yeah.
If you were to change to a franchise model, where basically you find the choral directors, and they have somebody within the choir who does the administration, and you basically set the template and you train these people and you set the program, would that work? I mean, you'd grow much faster, but you might. Would that work as a concept?
Yeah, I think it would, and it's something I'm definitely thinking about. So I did the Creative Entrepreneurs course last year, but I've just done another accelerator, and it's one of the things that I'm starting to learn about. I definitely see this as a pilot to see how it works, and I've just brought on the first person to see that it can work beyond me. And so definitely it's something that I would be interested in looking at going forward. I would be a bit worried that it would come across a bit as like the McDonald's of choirs, and it would lose its personal feeling.
Even that, the choir master would be picked by you and trained by you,
Yeah.
as the case now. But maybe the administrator could be from within the choir in lieu of subscriptions or something, and then they would have a personal connection with everyone in the choir, and that would be good for the community feel. Just a thought.
I did wonder actually about when I'm going to hopefully bring somebody on now, whether, because I've got an incredible network of 200 people from huge different careers, and you know there would be somebody I'm sure in the choir that would want to take on that role. So I have thought about it. I just wondered whether it might, if it weren't to work, for example, whether it might then be a bit awkward and make relationships a bit tense. But it's definitely something that I would think about going forward.
Given your wonderful figures so far and profit margins, which I expect most of these investors would die for, 50, 60, 70% profit margins, wonderful. And I know it's because you're not taking a full-time salary yet.
Yeah.
There's some money in there for you, but not. Can you not, in fact, pay for your £4,000 of administrative time from within that, even if you don't get this award?
I could do.
Yes.
I think up until now, because we're in the early stages, and I've always been aware that such and such a percentage of small businesses fail by the end of the second year, I've just been saving it. Just in case something happened I wasn't expecting. But actually, there are so many other things I need to use that money for. So we need, like our website is basic, and it's the first port of call that any potential singer has with us, and it's something that I made in 2 weeks and just learned how to make a website. So we really need somebody to redo that. I need somebody to look at the copy on the website. We need to invest in a really high quality, as you can see, promotional video that a lot of our competitors have and we don't have, and those things are so expensive.
Okay.
So those are
Lots
things
of
I can't do. Yeah. So
Can you explain a little more what your unique thing is? You described it as original arrangements of contemporary popular music. Mm-hmm. Can you give an example or two?
Yes. So anything from Annie Lennox, Peter Gabriel, right through to stuff that's unheard of, just undiscovered artists from yesterday, you know, and it really comes from suggestions from people from the choir.
And who arranges these things?
She does the
You actually do the arrangements?
I do. I listen to them and write it out, knowing what singers we've got and knowing how they sound best, and they're really personalised arrangements that are...
And do you have to pay royalties or PRS fees? Or
on the performances, yes, but because we're not selling them and we're not changing them, I got advice from the PRS that said because you're not changing them beyond the original lyrics and stuff, that we're absolutely fine.
One of the things which will concern Amati whenever it's making an investment in a company is what they call the key man issue or the key person issue. Is there somebody who is so central to the business that without that person the business might collapse, might subside? It strikes me that you're the key person in this business, and I wonder if you were not available for a period of time for whatever reason, how the business would function.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm here for, because I know that that's the next step. And I think any small business right at the beginning, I might be wrong, but you know, at the very, very infancy, it is, you know, a small group of people or one, you know, and that's what I want to change, because I'm aware that I'm not superhuman, and you know, something might happen, and that's what I'm really now, the priority area is to change that.
Thank you.
Can I ask how long a choir member stays with you? How long do they,
So
terms?
if you think we started in May 2016, most of that first choir are still the same choir. We have probably about 3 to 4 places come up a term for new people.
And are they normally sung in other choirs and come to you, or are they completely new to it?
Complete mixture.
Complete
mixture. So really enjoyably for me, I've had in the last sort of term people come from some of our competitors and tell me why. So that's been really enjoyable. But then we also have people that are brand new to singing, and it just happens that the choir's down the end of the road, and they need something for themselves, and they bumped into the banner outside and they go, do you know what, I'll try singing. They come for a huge range of reasons.
And in terms, it's quite expensive. I mean, do you give discounts to people, and if so, are they enough to allow for enough diversity?
Yes, so I have sort of an unofficial bursary scheme at the moment where I say if you can't afford it, speak to me. And then on an individual basis, a few people have come forward and said, I loved the taster session, but I'm not going to be able to afford it for X, Y, and Z. And is there anything you can do? And I do bring it down for those people, but I need to make that more of an official kind of sliding scale.
Okay.
Are there ever performances at the end of when you know, the work is ready can people hear it?
Yes, so we work towards really brilliant gigs. All these pictures that you can see are from the gigs that we work towards.
And is there revenue from the concerts?
Yes, not a huge amount. We cover our costs and a little bit more, but you know, something that's really important to me is that each choir performs on their own. So if you lump them all together, we'd make a huge amount of money on those concerts. Yeah. But that's what other people are doing, and that's not what we're about. So, you know, our audiences aren't huge. It's just friends and family of people that come. So we make sure to cover our costs. But we did at Christmas last year do one concert together with the 3 choirs, and in the one night we raised £5,000 for Crisis charity.
Okay, and a last question, because we're out of time. You've got waiting lists for your 4 choirs. Couldn't you have a second Brixton choir meeting in the same venue on a different evening? Yeah,
so that is definitely, I think, because I'm looking at the areas of where they want to be, and Brixton is definitely the most popular one. So I would start, or maybe just nearby, like Clapham North is one of my ideas. It's kind of in between the 2 of our most popular venues.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.